So that's your office.
You are live.
My office is running, same probably as everybody.
I
but
told Colleen
good. I mean,
that
good.
she
For the
might
most
try
part,
chiming
good.
in on the
You
Zoom,
know, we have our
so
ups
she
and
can,
downs.
if she hears any questions or wants to say anything, but that she cannot vote. If you see her on there, just let me know.
I get a lot of compliments. So that's good that we're doing something right over there.
And they put.
Roxanne Aldridge is here in the waiting room. I have somebody in the waiting room. I don't know who they are. Roxanne Aldridge.
She's from the TCDR. Let's go ahead and allow that. Admit her in.
Ridiculous. No.
Hey, still got some sort of rating street going. I said they had somebody.
I didn't see anybody over there.
Well, I don't know that I'd call it ticket, but there were guys.
Hi, Roxanne. Can you hear me?
Morning. Yes, how are you?
Doing fine. They're about to start the meeting, just getting everybody set up. I'm Scott. I'm just the one running the electronics here.
We want to start the meeting and we can take it in whatever order we want. So she's here early to do that.
Let her do her. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. And time is, I have 2:01 somewhere in that vicinity. Yes, sir. And since it's
She's under chief appraisal report. She.
yeah, I do have to handle at least the citizens will be heard in the minutes.
Okay.
We can dispense with that real quick. So is there anybody waiting to speak online?
There is not.
Okay, so we can dispense with item number 3, and then I'll just consider a motion on the minute, which is item number 2.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. There are only 3 of us here, kind of move it around.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, good morning. I guess we're going to listen to your presentation.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Mike, would you mind giving me permission to share my screen?
Yes, we can do that. We'll probably need Aiden to do that. Let me go get him real quick.
You can see us, but only the backs of our head. Is that right?
That's kind of, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we look over here.
Maybe that's why she's seeing it.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So like you wave backward.
No, actually, the camera is behind you guys, kind of like
I'll wave
the
backward.
other side. Yeah, there you go.
Got him up, let Aiden drive.
So what was her question? Share screen.
Yeah, we've got Aiden here to hopefully help with that.
Okay.
So I want to share my screen so I could show you my presentation. It's just, it's disabled for me, so.
You should be all set up now.
Okay,
See it?
yes, thank you.
No problem.
One second.
I'll answer whatever you want to call.
Okay.
I mean,
So I have a presentation. I'm going to go through some of these slides. We generated, and I actually came out, what was it, 2 weeks ago, maybe less, 2 weeks ago or so, visited with Mike and Josie and just kind of, went over next year's numbers. And he said you would like to visit with just the general overview of the plan and see what questions you have, especially about the health of the plan. So we generated this, it's called an economic modeling study, and I will share that after a few of the slides from the presentation. And that study shows specifically for you, for the appraisal district, what would happen to your rate under different economic situations. And mainly what it's looking at, or the only thing it's looking at, is investment return. So it's going to show what happens to your rate under worse than expected investment return. Then it's going to show what happens to your rate if we have no gains or losses. So if our assumption is met with no gains or losses every year, and then it's going to show what happens if we have better than expected performance year after year. And this is a 5-year modeling. So let's start with the presentation first. TCDRS was created in 1967 by Texas legislature. We have over 345,000 members and retirees, over 800 employers, about $45 billion in assets as of the end of last year. And with a 40-year return of 9.9% and 89% system-wide funded, we are situated in one of the top retirement plans nationwide. We do not receive funding from the state of Texas. The funding that comes into TCDRS comes in from employer deposits, employee contributions, and investment return. On average, our operating costs average about 0.23% of assets. And to compare that to defined contribution type plans, they typically average closer to 2 to 3% of assets. We're managed independently by a 9-member board of trustees who are appointed by the Texas governor with the approval of the Texas Senate. The 3 main features that set TCDRS apart from many other retirement plans, not just the ones in the state of Texas, but nationwide, is that we're savings-based benefit. That means both your employees and you as an employer are saving in advance from day one when your employees start working for you, so that at retirement, these benefits have been saved for, have been provided for. We have responsible plan funding. In our plan, we send you the cost for the next year, every single year. You do not have the option to pay less than the cost of your plan. You have the option to pay more if you choose to do so. If you cannot afford to pay that cost, you have the option to lower your benefits. And that's where the flexibility and local controls comes in. So each year we look at your plan, we compared what we thought was going to happen versus what actually happened. And then we send you the new document for next year, the plan assessment with your new cost. And you have the option to maintain, to keep the plan as is, or to make changes to fit your budget and your own philosophy. So look at this, at the savings-based benefit feature. You guys have a 7% employee deposit rate, which means each employee puts in 7% before taxes from each paycheck that they receive. Each individual's account earns 7% compounded interest. At retirement,
From what frequency?
it's annual.
So it's only once a year it's coming out.
Yes, it's an annual compounded rate.
Okay.
Now, if somebody retires in the middle of the year, it's going to get prorated, clearly. So they don't miss out on it because they're not finishing out the year. When someone retires, their final account balance will be matched by 250%. So that's the match you're providing to your employees. You have the option to provide between 100% all the way up to 250 and any number divisible by 5. So your district is currently at 250%. Now, it's important to understand that unless someone retires, if they quit, they can withdraw their account balance, but they're not going to have access to the matching funds. So the only time the matching funds are accessed is when an employee actually retires and gets a monthly check for the rest of their lives. If they're quitting and withdrawing, even if they're vested, they can just take out what they put in plus the interest that it's earned. Once someone retires, they will receive a benefit for the rest of their lives. They will get to select one of 7 options at retirement. Each one will pay, again, that person for the rest of their lives. It's just different in whether or not it provides for a beneficiary, and if it does, how much it gives the beneficiary. Let's look at your averages, and this is specific to you guys. On average, your employees are age 49 with 9 years of TCDRS service. And on average, your retirees are at the age of 61. They retire at the age of 61 with 19 years of service. And their average annual TCDRS benefit is just a little over $29,000. In 2021, we paid about close to $2 billion in benefits to all of our retirees. In Aransas County, we paid a little over $3.4 million. So in Aransas County, it's not just the appraisal district. Of course, the county participates with us, and we have the navigation district that participates with us as well. And I believe that's it in Aransas County itself. This $1.9 billion that we pay to our retirees, we found that it provides $2.9 billion in total economic output, creates over 19,000 jobs, and added about $1.7 billion to the Texas gross domestic product. And so we just, some years back, right after 2008, we started doing these studies each year just to see how the money that we pay our retirees flow through the community. And we actually found that about 98% of all of our retirees remain in the communities where they've been living, they've been working for all those years prior to retirement. Let's take a look at a snapshot of your plan. Again, your employee deposit rate is 7%. This is the highest you can select for your employees. So the more an employee deposits into his or her individual account, the larger their benefit will be at retirement. The options to select as far as the employee deposit rate for you as the board is 4, 5, 6, or 7%. These benefits will apply the same to all of your employees. So you can't have a group that puts in 4% and another one putting 7%. The match you're providing at retirement is 250%. There is no option to increase that. That is the highest it could be. Again, it's between 100 to 250% in any number divisible by 5. You currently have a 5-year vesting, which is the lowest vesting that you can select. And that means once an employee has at least 5 years of service, down the road, they will become eligible to retire. So if they leave before they reach the 5-year vesting, they will not become eligible to retire. And there are 3 eligibility requirements. You guys have the lowest ones in place. So there is no option to go any lower than this. The first one is 5-year vesting and age 60. So pretty clear. Someone starts working for the district a little bit later. Maybe this is their second or their third career. After 5 years of service, if they are also age 60, they would become eligible to retire. You have the rule of 75 in place, which says age plus years of service has to equal to at least 75. And then you have 20 years of service at any age. If you remember a few slides ago, we looked at averages for your employees and retirees. And so we saw that on average, people work about 19 years before they retire. So that's actually a little above average, system-wide average. System-wide average employees work a little bit less before retirement. So you guys definitely are retaining your employees. This is your replacement ratio based on the level of benefits you currently have in place, which is 7% employee deposit rate and 250 match. It shows what percent of someone's final salary is replaced at retirement. And it's going to change depending on how long somebody works for you. So on the far left side, hired at 55, retired at 65. So you're looking at 10 years of service. This person will get 25% of their annual salary replaced by TCDRS. Far right side, somebody with 30 years of service, hired at 35, retired at 65, they'll get 99% replaced. Again, I'm going to mention that on average, your employees work 19 years before retirement. So truly, we're looking more at this column. So about 57% of your employees' salary gets replaced at TCDRS. That's truer in nature to your specific mix of people. Investment income plays a really big part in our system because for every dollar that we pay to a retiree, 74 cents of that comes from investment earnings. 15 cents comes from employer contributions and 11 cents comes from employee deposits. So if that component was not in place, the cost to the employer would be significantly higher to provide the same level of benefits. We have a highly diversified portfolio, and this is our current asset allocation as of March of this year. Our website has an investment section that gets updated very regularly, not just with the asset allocation, but also with performance, with managers and so forth. We have a very long-term investment horizon at TCDRS because, as you saw, your people on average work about 19 years before they retire, and then they're going to be retired in another 20, 30 years. So we don't just look on our performance on an annual basis, we look at it on a very long horizon. Our long-term investment return goal is 7.5%. You can see that our 2021 return alone was about 22%. And then every return that we have, the 5, 10, 20, 30, et cetera, outperforms the current investment return assumption of 7.5%. We compare our returns against industry set benchmarks. And again, as you can see, we have outperformed each benchmark for that period of time. If you wanted to see annualized returns since 2002, so for the last 20 years, the gray band represents our risk tolerance. So because we know that risk directly impacts you as an employer, we invest very conservative, more conservative than, say, an individual. So we hope every year to get between around 7.5% investment return. But then we go about 10% or so up and down from 7.5%, and that's our risk tolerance. So we expect to fall within this gray band on an annual basis. As you can see, we have performed as expected. Of course, there are highs and there are lows. Currently, we have the 22% for last year. The outlier is the significant negative investment return from 2008 when we had the Great Recession, negative 29%, and following the next year, we had the recovery, 26.5%. We have tools in place to soften impacts from both positive and negative investment return. One of the tools is a 5-year smoothing. So anytime we have positive or negative investment return, anything above or below 7.5%, we spread it over a 5-year period. So we smooth it. And that way your rate doesn't jump up or down on an annual basis, because that would be very hard for you in terms of your budget. We also have a reserves account, and following 2021, where we had a very, very positive return, we were able to add a few extra $1 billion in there. And we use that reserves account to soften the blow when we do have negative investment return years. Any questions so far?
Where do you want to start?
When do I want to start what?
Start allowing us to ask questions.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, you had a statement in the beginning about the cost of the plan, and then it's 89% funded. So the cost of the plan doesn't have anything to do with the funding rate. You're just passing on expenses. Is that correct?
No. So 89% funded is a system-wide average for funded ratio. It is not yours. It is not the district. So here's you guys. Here's specific to you guys. So here's at 7% employee deposit rate, 250 match. Here are the eligibility requirements we went over. So I'm going to call this your level of benefits. So for next year, to maintain this level of benefits, the required rate right here is 20.82%. And excuse me, I'm going to scroll down really quick just to see. And it's going down. Currently, you're paying 21.38%. So because we had that really, really good investment return year, we passed on gains to our employers. So it's going down to 20.82%. Now, here are your numbers. So your actuarial accrued liability, which is the cost of your plan as of last year, is a $3.8 million. Your actuarial value of assets, which includes both employee and employer contributions, $3.4 million. And the difference between the cost and your assets is your unfunded liability, which is a $467,000. And that makes your plan 87.9% funded. So the funded ratio is just the relationship of your assets to the cost of your plan.
Hang on. According to our audit report, our net pension liability is just over 300,000 at 311. So why a 30% difference? Actually, 45.
That's the GASB 68 report. That's not how our plan works. We generate that, we have two sets. We have the GASB 68 report, which is what your external audit is based on. And those numbers are based on realizing, not even realizing, it's just looking at the plan very differently than the way we actually evaluate the plan, the way you actually pay for it. So when we send you these numbers, which is how the plan works right here, we amortize unfunded liabilities over 20 years unless it is a plan change, and then it gets amortized over 15 years. So we assume that your plan continues indefinitely. For GASB purposes, we have to use different rules, different numbers. And it's just because, you know, the government's trying to compare apples to apples. It's still not quite apples to apples because of the way we work. But if you think about it, with GASB 68, you could actually have earnings. We have plans that are overfunded and it shows income coming in from retirement, which is not the case. That's not going to happen, right? So two separate, these are the numbers that we use for your cost on an annual basis.
Okay, along that same line, for our specific plan, we have 10 employees here based on what I see in the salary schedule, but how many employees are drawing retirement that used to work for the district here?
How many retirees do you have?
Yes.
Mike, would you happen to know that?
No, I don't have a good figure from the standpoint because, you know, there's people that are drawing retirement from well before I started working, so I wouldn't even know. But there's probably.
Well, I can look it up. I can look it up.
Yeah, there's.
I just didn't know if you knew really fast, so I didn't have to look it up.
I was
I'll
thinking.
look it up really quick.
I'm thinking, like, if I were to guess, it'd be 8, but the range in salaries are very different for sure. No, actually, yeah, the range in salaries are very, very different.
Well, that's really not what I'm after, but I'll tell you what I'm after is we have in our 2020 audit report, we were given, our 2020 year, we were given a cost of service of $75,000. Divided by 10, that's $7,500 employee. That's an awfully high expense ratio on an employee basis. But if it's divided by a number bigger than that, it keeps dropping at the same time. 3,000, 3,500 worth of expense of work the plan.
Yes. Again, the GASB numbers, it's not what you're actually paying. So you have 7 retirees.
Yeah, that's between 6 and
Yeah, you have 7 as of beginning of this month, I guess, or last month. Excuse me, let me go back.
And I know that I remember specifically one employee, I won't mention their name, but I remember when that person retired, they indicated that they were going to do the life pop-up. So that beneficiary is going to be, you know, that future beneficiary is going to be collecting for the rest of their life as well. You know, so, yeah, but that's, you take all that in consideration of the plan.
Yeah, when your people retire, you've already provided for them. Yeah. So when someone retires, we actually transfer an employee's account into your account, into the district's account, and that's where these payments are coming from. So when you're a small entity like you guys, it's, you know, payroll fluctuations, your benefits grow through time, but then your payroll doesn't grow at the same rate. So then the percent of your payroll is going to increase and increase, which is what you've seen. And then you guys are at the top level of benefits that you can also provide. The 250 match, which only came into place not that long ago. 2009.
Great point. I'm just trying to figure out what it costs. Mike, do we write a check for $7,500 worth of service expense in 2020? Or is it taken from the earnings?
We write a check to TCDRS.
Every month, we do a monthly report and they withdraw from our account.
So for next year, this is your cost, 20.82% of your payroll. And the district pays it, all of our employers pay it monthly. You can calculate the annual amount.
That's what I'm thinking he's looking for.
Yeah, there's no expense checks being written. The GASB numbers you're seeing, you're not paying us those numbers. These are the numbers that actually is your cost for next year if you maintain the same level of benefits. And currently it's a little over 21%.
If you'll excuse, the way that you described it to begin with was that there was a service cost and you tell the entity what that cost is, and if they can't afford to pay it, then you show them a different way to pay it by reducing or raising their contribution rate.
No,
So-
what I said was we have,
Cost is a pretty specific word. I'm just trying to figure out how we pay for $75,000 of cost.
this is your cost for next year. You budget it, you put it in your budget the year before. You're putting it in your budget right now for next year, and this is how you pay us. So your cost is going down for next year. Right now, it's a little over 21%.
Yeah,
And what I said was, we look at your plan every year. We send you this document, the plan assessment. We show you what your cost is for next year. So you're going to look at the cost and you're going to say, this is too high. And then you as a board will say, maybe we can adjust some of these benefits, in which case it will lower the cost. That's how the plan works in a nutshell.
as far as the percentage and the actual cost, if you go to the employee breakdown right here, that one right there, and if you look at proposed retirement, that's the actual cost per employee.
Annually?
Annually. That's the actual cost. So it's not the 75, that I don't know where that number is coming from, but this is the cost. We use these amounts, these percentages, to actually calculate against these salaries. So if you look at 22 retirement and you look at 107, how much did we allocate in 2021? I'm sorry,
It's just like a monthly, commission, and then for that much, for and this much for the company.
Okay, I'm not being understood. I would try to make it straightforward. You have a contribution rate from the employee and from the employer, and that adjusts based upon what's been paid out. You also have a cost of running the plant. You have a cost, you have a salary.
That's all part of this cost. That's taken off the top. We don't pass that on to you. It's taken off the top of our assets. So when I mentioned.
That's
I
the
think
answer to
you're
the
talking- I
question
think-
I had 10 minutes ago, which is.
Are you talking about this? Are you talking about this, the operating cost?
I just know that cost means there's an expense. Somebody writes a check or it's reduced from the actual earnings in the plan. But I think I just heard you say that the plan pays for it. Your increase in earnings and contributions pays for you and all the people that draw salary. Is that correct?
Yes, our operating costs. Yes, these are our operating costs, because I'm not
Okay.
gonna work for free. Yeah, that's taken off the top. Yeah, that's taken off the top. That's not free. That's not yours. I mean, doesn't come from your plan.
I think
Every-
internally we need to, and I would just suggest, obviously, we're only one board out of 350,000 employees that are members of this. But labeling it cost as that's the contribution isn't what I would call cost. Your operating expenses are costs. And maybe we'll just need to internally change the verbiage so it makes sense to us. Okay, you got that? Okay.
how would you like that, or are you gonna get with,
We'll talk about this. So I got a couple of other questions. I want to, when we passed what I'm asking here, is everybody okay with what answer we got?
if you've got the.
Got that answer.
Okay, good.
Operating costs come out of the plan's earnings, basically. Okay, they pay themselves first. Okay. You got a 7% guaranteed return?
Yes.
What happens if over the course of time, it begins to fall below that? I know the net pension liability goes up that we show here. What really happens? How do you make that back up?
You as an employer pay for it. The
Pardon me?
employer bears the risk in our plan.
So,
Texas
In this
legislature
case-
sets it at 7%, and we guarantee employees' accounts 7%, because that's how the plan works. And you as an employer, in years when we do not make 7%, 7.5%, pay for the difference. In years when we do make above and beyond, like you saw, our 40-year return is close to 10%. So when it's above and beyond, employees still get 7%, but you as an employer benefit from the earnings.
Okay,
Is that
so, well, what that does is it confirms what I've been told for several years. I was a school board trustee before this job. They both pay the same, by the way. And the way
They both what?
it's explained, I said they both pay the same.
which is nothing.
Oh.
He's saying.
If it were to have a situation in the marketplace where we had years of declined earnings, market tanks for a period of time like it did in 08.
Mhm.
The way that this office and all other appraisal districts get back to their 7% return is to go to those who contribute to their annual operating expenses and say, we need a contribution.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue to our economic modeling study. So I'll send this to Mike afterwards if you want to see it. So this is an economic modeling study, and what it illustrates, it's going to show a 5-year future period. It's going to illustrate what happens to your required rate under different economic environments. So one, it's going to be a down market, and these are the actual geometric returns. Average market, meaning no gains or losses. We have 7.5% every single year. And then an up market, if we have an up market every single year. So I'm just showing you because I know you're going to want to know, what does it assume? Okay, so let's see what actually happens under those different scenarios to your rates. So the current plan as it stands. Now you have an elected rate in place right now of 19.78%, and it's probably because in the past that was your required rate, and then you said we're going to keep it. Like your required rate probably went down, and you said we're going to keep the higher rate as an elected rate, which you can do this year as well. Keep that 21%, 21.3 something percent as your elected rate. When your required rate is above the elected rate, you can't pay less because you have to pay the cost of your plan. That's how we're going to ensure that your plan does not go into default years down the road. So under the current plan as it stands, if we have a down market consecutive year after year, this is what your required rate is going to do. You've seen this number before for next year with no changes to your plan. The cost is 20.82%. So it's going to go up higher and higher every single year. In a situation where we have no gains and no losses from investment return, your required rate will drop. And in a situation where we have better than expected market performance, investment return performance, of course, your rate is going to drop. So when you are planning, budgeting, looking at the next 5 years, you could basically say that it could be in a range between this number and this number for 2024, for example, if you're looking at that scenario. Now, this is not worst case scenario. This is not best case scenario. So, but typically we're going to fall, and these are all actuarial numbers, which are based on expert educated predictions about the future, because we don't know, we don't have the crystal ball to see what's going to happen. But for budget purposes, if you wanted to think about it, you could kind of use this as a range. So it could be from here to here. Now, I will say with the market the way it is right now, we are already negative as far as investment return is concerned. Our returns are based on December 31st. So who knows, things could change between now and then, but if it continues as is, your rate will increase next year. Very good chance that it's going to increase. Now, this graphs, basically this illustrates the numbers that I just showed you. And that's all I have. Sometimes we run different estimates, assuming if you adopt a much, much higher elected rate. But this is kind of just to give you an idea based on the plan as it stands. a certain range of your required rate. So in reality, what's going to happen is some years going to be like this, and some years it's going to be like this. So that's really what happens year after year. So it's a mix of these numbers. And of course, as one number changes, let's say this number is actually 21.32, then next year, all these numbers will be a little bit lower. The same with this one, or this one, if it's in an up market, if it's actually not as robust, then these numbers will also be a little bit higher.
You said earlier we were funded to about 90%, right?
87. The system-wide average is 89. You guys are at about 87. It's right here.
So you-
87.9.
When you set that rate at 21, 2019, the minimum, what's that supposed to accomplish?
Say that again.
You set the 21% minimum or the 20 this year, you said it's gonna go down, that we have to elect the 20% or whatever it is. You model it to accomplish what? To hold us even at 87 or?
No, it's just showing what will happen. It has nothing to do with your funded ratio. We could run one if you say, show me what it will take under these same economic conditions, under these scenarios, show me what it will take, what elected rate, how much more do we have to pay to stay 87% funded? So I don't know what this takes you down to.
No, I understand that question. What are you modeling for? What are you modeling? What is the, when you come up with that 20%? So what is, it's a minimum to accomplish what? You model it, you get.
To pay for the benefits that you've promised. This is the cost. If you keep your benefits the same, meaning employees put in 7, matches 250 at retirement, this cost is in place to provide for those benefits so that when your employees retire, it's paid for.
So how are we on the ratio of the 87.9? How are we basically 12 points underfunded?
And that number has nothing to do with getting 87. I strong with a disconnect is to fund our plan is 100%.
Right,
We're at 87 or below 100.
yeah.
We have a rate that's set to get it funded, but that has nothing to do with getting to 100. But I'll defer to Jack because that's smart.
So if we had no losses from investment return or no gains for that matter, your plan is designed just by paying the required rate to move towards 100% funded, right?
Okay.
But
Great.
and that's just by paying this required rate, not even adding in extra money. But things change. You guys adopt benefit changes, which then anytime you have a benefit change and it creates an unfunded liability, that gets paid off in 15 years. When the market performs poorly, we spread that over a 5-year period, and each one of those years has a 20-year amortization period attached to it. So we unfunded liabilities that occur outside of benefit changes have a 20-year amortization period. So it's a long-term goal here. It's a long-term road. And if we could earn 7.5 every single year, you'd basically pay off the house. It's just like a mortgage. You would get to 100% funded, but things happen along the road.
That's your modeling though. You do have a model that is under that rate is set under certain circumstances to get it to 100. I understand those. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, you have 350,000 employees according to your opening slide, is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You have 350,000 members, if you want to call it that, of the TCDRS retirement plan.
Yes.
Slide, okay. What is your overall expense ratio for the entire plan expressed in a percentage?
What do you mean by expense ratio?
Just that. What does it cost you to run the plan over 350,000 people? You know, I have an investment portfolio. I know what.
0.23% of our assets. This is what it costs us to run the plan.
Okay, that's overall.
Yes.
2, 3.
These are overall numbers here, yes.
of assets. What are your assets right now? You said a big number earlier.
$45 billion.
Okay, well, you just erased a lot of concern by telling me your expense ratio is under 0.25%.
Okay,
Don't understand why. Yeah, if you got a $45 billion plan, this got a 5 or 6% expense ratio. They're making more than you are. So 0.23 is. Sounds like a good number. Okay, continue. Sorry about the hard questions. It's just this is kind of my background, not necessarily investments, but financial statements in general.
I welcome them. And if I can't answer them, I'll get you an answer. That's pretty much all I have. So I just kind of wanted to see what other questions you have.
And kind of a follow-up question to this, where Roxanne, this is not for you, but you can listen to it, obviously. We're just about to do a budget for the next year. The 20.8 is the numbers that I use because that's the required rate. In years future or any time later this year, this board can elect up through December, right? We can change
December 15th.
Say it again.
December 15th.
Through December 15th of this year, you can actually increase that elected rate by a resolution or through an action of this board for future years. And you can set it, I think right now it's at 19.7. Is that what we have?
Give me 1 second.
It's 21.
Yeah, 19.78.
19.78 is the elected rate. The board can actually make that go to some other number so that the funded ratio gets to 100% quicker.
Well,
Yeah,
and
so
prior
there-
board did that. I forget what the dollar contribution
Right.
was, but it raised it, which got me to thinking all the questions I've asked this morning is, what happens in a down market?
Is there any, Roxanne, is there anything like if the board had, let's just say there was unassigned funds of 20,000, I'm just making this number up. Let's just say we had, the board had 20,000 of unassigned funds. Could they assign it and put it towards the fund immediately, or does it have to be through a contribution percentage?
That's an additional contribution, and you can certainly do that. So there are two ways to add extra funds to the plan. One is the elected rate and one is additional contributions. And I want to show you, give me 1 second. I want to show, we can play with numbers really quickly just to see how that would impact your plan. And actually a lot of employers do that, especially appraisal districts. I feel like they tend to do additional contributions because at the end of the year, they have those extra funds, and instead of returning them to the entities, they end up sending them to us. Not everybody does that, that's for sure. But and the only reason I know is because they've told me that's their reasoning, and that's how it happens.
Oh, I don't know. I'm already out.
Actually makes sense.
We did that one year.
Yeah, we did that. And Travis, you were here when we did it it was like 7, 8 years ago.
It was the first year that they started putting that number in our audit report and enlightened us to the fact that we were not funded to 100%.
I don't think there's a pension plan in the US that's fully funded.
Well, the question went around then, I remember this is a long time ago, but it wasn't the expectation, but we really were trying to figure out where did we stand in comparison to our peers. Yeah, and that was a tough, we'd never seen the number. It was never in the report. And all of a sudden it was put in front of us and it was at 90. And so, being a conservative board, it was.
Can you show us what?
In good shape, it was hard to figure it out. So we've made a lot more progress today but you learn more every time you go through this practice.
Can you show us what $20,000 would do right there? Just.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. Your unfunded liability is a little over $400,000. 20,000 is not going to do too much.
That's all yeah.
So yeah, here's 400. This is your unfunded, and so basically all that happened. The only reason I'm looking at this is when you're adding 20,000, it's going to increase your assets. That's like barely a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, that's 5%.
Yeah, but I can definitely do that so you can see. Give me 1 second.
So the best way to, if it were considered a problem, which it's not, like you said, if there's not a pension liability that's out there, a pension plan that's out there that's totally funded. But if you were to attack the problem, you would want to do it on two fronts, contributions and increasing the elected rate, which this board can do in a future meeting.
Yeah, I would say the elected rate might be just the simplest, the easiest, fastest way, because it's something that you can maintain throughout the year after year, especially if you have a really nice gap. Experts recommend between 3 and 4% higher than your required rate. Not just for the fact of getting to 100% faster. Believe it or not, some employers don't even care about that. What they want to have in place is just the buffer, because they know we will have a negative investment return. It's going to happen. Nobody's trying to hide that. We will bounce back because that's just the nature of it. But they want to have that buffer so that when it hits, they don't have to increase their required rate as much because you have extra assets in your plan. So we have over a third of our employers are over 100% funded, and they got there through elected rate, additional contribution, or a mix of the two.
That was just we kind of trying to figure out, we knew we were in great shape. Yes, we weren't real sure of how that compared to our peer companies. That should be the benchmark. There you go.
So this is a 20,000 additional contribution. Here it is, 20,000. And just to look at those bottom numbers, it actually made your funded ratio go up to 88.4%. And then your required rate goes right here from 20.82 to 20.39. So actually that had more impact than I thought it would. You may not see it as high, but to me, that's a pretty significant impact for 20,000.
Can I ask a stupid question? Because I don't ever mind being the stupid one in the room. How elected rate lower than required? How can our elected be lower than the required if it's the required rate?
Well, so you had this, you were paying this in the past, and then when your required went above, you couldn't pay this anymore.
You have to pay the required rate.
You have to pay the high. If the required rate is higher than your elected, we're not going to let you pay. We're not going to let you pay less than the required.
It's a floor. Elected is a floor.
You can't go
Thank
lower.
you. That makes sense.
So this can be removed. It can be changed. So basically, when it went above the required rate, then it was one of those, there's no option to pay this. Now you could have said, let's remove
If we wanted
it.
to pay more, we would raise our elected rate to the input. Okay, I got
You
it.
could really-
That makes sense. I got it. Thank you. I understood we couldn't pay less than required, so thought we were paying our elected and it didn't make sense.
No.
That all makes sense.
Once this goes below, that's when you'll start really visiting with it and looking at it. And you can, at that point, you'll have the option to pay the elected rate, or you can say, we're going to remove the elected rate. We're going to go with that lower required rate. Or, you can even change the elected rate to something lower. But until this goes below this, we don't even look at this just because it's lower than your required.
I got another stupid question. So if we were the 20%, where does that go? Where is the 20% apply to? What is it?
This, your required rate?
Yeah.
You have, the district has its own individual account, and it goes into, there's a monthly statement that shows money going in.
The salary.
Of your payroll, of your TCDRS. I say TCDRS payroll because
So
if you
how
have
much-
employees that are
Employer,
temporary.
employee,
Yeah, that's a good question. Of the
we
20,
pay them at 21%.
of the 20, yeah, the 20.8, that's the calculated. What is the employee contribution and what is the employer contribution of the 20?
Yeah.
This is all the employer. This is all the employers. Employees, this is 7% goes from their paycheck.
Okay, so if we raise the elected rate, that is simply raising how much we pay.
Yes. Yes.
It's not affecting the employees. Okay. Okay.
Roxanne, I can tell you that this has been helpful to me for sure. I've got some questions answered, and we've got some more questions generated, which are going to be constructive in the future. And do you have anything else, Jack or Travis?
I got kind of a summary of say the school district versus the president, which I think is a very positive light. And she can listen or she can go on about her day, whatever.
I can listen.
Yeah,
So, what's she gonna do?
I don't know, just.
Unless you don't have any more questions, and then if
We don't have any
it,
more questions. I
Okay.
just want to kind of a summary to the group, but you're welcome to listen in if you care.
oh, sure.
Okay. This is a finally written plan based upon the answers to the questions I got this morning. It benefits the employees greatly. The difference in this plan and in the school district is their unfunded liability, pension liability on their balance sheet is something in excess of $4 million. But the state of Texas says that's not an actual liability. I hate it when Austin says something like that. They push down off of their balance sheet the unfunded liability that they have to the individual school districts. Which means someday, when things aren't going really good in Austin, somebody gets a bill for the contribution rate with PRS. That can't happen here. But you do have the right to go back to the school district and county in a second or two to make sure that yours stays at a level that meets the guarantee. And that therein lies the difference. And can you go back to one slide which had the percentage of salary made at 10 years of service and up to 30 years of service? I want to see what that front number is.
So as I do that, we're very different from several reasons why we're different from teachers. One, they are part of the state, so they have to go to legislature and ask for money. So if there's no money, they don't get it, and they can't pay the actual cost of their plan. That's one. Two, the way we pay out benefits is very differently. We pay it based on what somebody has in their account and the match that you've promised them, which you're saving in advance to pay for that. They calculate a benefit based on average years of service and average salary. And I don't know if you remember some years back, I haven't seen it in the news in a long time, but that there was a big thing about benefit spike because an employee who was getting ready to retire, they had a few years left, they would all of a sudden get a promotion and move from a salary here to a salary here just for a handful of years before they retired. And it would drastically increase their benefits in retirement. But all those years they were paying, the system had been paying for a benefit that was at a much lower salary, on average based on a much lower salary. So those are issues that we do not have in our plan at all.
Okay. 25% of your that employee's annual salary if they did your 10 years. That's not a big number, but it's on par. That's probably a little better than Social Security. At least my personal experience. Okay. Anybody else have questions?
Roxanne, thank you so much for your presentation today. We really appreciate it. Like I said, it gave me a whole bunch.
My pleasure. Let me know if you have any more questions. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then we can, good.
Oh, no. You still gotta do the rest of me?
Well, I feel a whole lot better because the information I had was that the performance of the plan was guaranteed by, in essence, the entity that we get our funds from to run this office. And that it was also a bunch of Rick Perry's appointees that paid themselves monstrous salaries because they knew that they didn't have to come up with somebody else did. That turns out not to be accurate with the 0.23 expense ratio. That was the number that I really see comfortable with what it is that we're paying them.
Right. Sounds good.
I'd say that this is really a great plan.
Good. Well, I'm glad we got some questions answered. It probably generated some more for later. And the good thing is that what I got out of this is this board has some things that they can do if they want to do. You can contribute unassigned funds and assign them specifically for this purpose. in the future, this board can actually have an elected rate that's higher than the 19, they can go up to 21, 22, 23. You know, she said that typically what she's seen in the past is 3 to 4% above the required rate. So you can pick one, you can pick a number and just leave it there. You can say we want 24% or 25% as far as our elected rate. And those are actions the board can take in the future. You have it through, I think she said through December 15th of this year.
Well, here's kind of where you said you met originally on this, you decided to kick in some funds. What I think I would want to know is how does a district this size, and that means number of employees and salaries and benefits package, how do we compare to others of a similar size? What's their funded ratio?
Oh,
And if we're in a group that averages 75, then we're better than it. If we're in a group that's average 92 or 3 or 4 or 5, then we're not. And that's kind of where I think the next step is. Let's see where we fit with other entities our size.
yeah, and I'll get Roxanne, of course, has all kinds of information like that, so she could probably get that to me, and I'll present it at the people meeting. Okay.
Let's be good information. for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, just generally, I feel good at 88%. Would I feel better at 94? Absolutely. You know,
We're better off than we were back when we made whatever move we made, there's no question, but we made a one-time move, and a long time ago when we did it, without reviewing minutes, look at highlight, we did it with a lot of presentations, and we were drinking from a fire hose, I'm sure. However, we made a move, in hindsight, and really based on what we learned today, probably need to be doing maybe a little more maintenance. We made a one-time Band-Aid, and looking at it since elected rate versus the required and the buffer, it's a lot easier to take your medicine over time than it is to constantly be doing one-time fixes. So, the combination of an increased elected rate with, using some of the unassigned funds at the end of the year is or all an elected rate over time. I mean, there's a slow and probably very palatable fix to this. Adding a maintenance plan to what was done years ago, I guess, long drawn out.
One other number in that request is how many entities our size match a 250% contribution.
do you want to make sure you write that down, Karen, please? All righty.
Okay, moving right along. I'm glad you did that.
I mean, it was informative. Good.
Okay, we're at item number 4, proposed budget.
Okay, so item number 4 for the proposed budget, you have them both in hard copy and on your drive here, your Amazon drive. But basically, comprises 2 pages. One looks like this, and it says the proposed budget. Okay, it's kind of a column thing right here. The second page is the salary breakdown, which is required. Those are the 2 things in question. I'm just going to go through it, and let me go through it, and then you can ask any questions that you want. As you know, that I tried to give this to you a week in advance. I gave it to you last Friday, and for your nighttime reading, put you to sleep, or to give you angst and heartburn at night before. But I gave that to you so that you would have a little bit of time to digest what went on. Looking at starting from the top, you see the 23 proposed budget Excel. You see the 23 proposed versus the 22 actual. You can just at a glance, you can see that the data processing is much the same, interest income is much the same, miscellaneous income is much the same. The backup, the data, we got a recommendation from, I think it was Colin to increase it by a certain amount. So that's commensurate there. You can see that the overall actual to the 23 proposed is only about not even a $2,000 difference there on the revenue. Moving down to the expenses, you can see that the group hospital is the same. The retirement is actually increased. That's taking into account, the 20.20.82 required rate, not the required rate. Yeah, the required rate, that she just disseminated. So it's looking at the salaries that that I'm proposing for the 22 year for the people involved. And it's taking that 20.82 and it says that we're gonna put this much away for retirement. So that, represents that 118,000 right there.
Okay, pause just a second. The 20.82 rate is based on last year's salaries, or this year's salary.
It's based on this year's salary.
Okay, so when you raise it, doesn't that also raise the 20.82?
No, you take the salary times the rate. The salary times the rate.
Got it.
Yeah,
Use the new salaries up.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Moving on, Medicare, we have the same, unemployment insurance the same, long-term disability the same, workman's comp the same. So you can look at the overall benefits total, you're looking from 204 to 215. That's the change. Disbursements, you have capital outlay the same, no loan payments. Advertising legal notices, we've increased a few because we've had some other requirements there, based on last year's, when Josie and I sit down together, we look at what we've actually spent and see if we need to bump these numbers or change these numbers in any way. So you see a small change there. Board of review expense, we're at 23,500, that remains the same. Bookkeeping and auditing, we saw a small increase from the previous to the new person. There was a small increase. We've got that number adjusted and accounted for. Auto expense is the same. We did do a auto expense salary survey around the state and found that ours was much kind of right in the middle of where it needed to be. I think Jack and I talked about that when he came. Conference Association dues the same, data processing. That has increased. There's a couple of different things that the BIS that we have as part of the data processing, which is our collection. We have Harris Govern, which is our main software, but then we also have data collection that we have in BIS, which is when we go around, and this is something we've talked about for 2 years. It's been in place. It's just different. We're including it in the line item. It helps the appraisers when they take photos, they have mapping in the field. And so it's called.
What do you mean we're including in the line item now?
In years past, it was we added it through a budget resolution in a previous year, which means that I asked permission for you to can I have this software? And you said, yes, let's do it. But it wasn't in
Very easy.
the previous June.
Okay,
But-
this is the first time it's made it into a line item.
I think
on the
so. I
budget.
believe so. Yeah, I believe that's correct. Other things with data processing.
It seems like we've had it longer, and that's the reason I asked. I
It's
remember
it's
talking about the software, it was, but maybe not, I don't know, we're all around.
It's been about 2 years, yeah. And this is the first, yeah,
Okay, so you think this is the first time it's been in the line item?
it may be. But other things in the line
Yeah.
are the increased requirement for our truth and taxation, which is the postcards. And this year, what's going to be different in the last year was our first year for that, which Ann and I spent a lot of time making sure that the truth and taxation website was displaying correctly. But there's a statutory mandate to have that online. This year, there's going to be a repository at the comptroller's office that everybody's postcard is going to point to that locale, and then it's going to display. You'll be able to select your whatever county that person is displaying.
Then it takes us to our website.
Yeah, and then it takes us back to, then it takes us to the website that we're maintaining. Again, all of that maintenance has been passed on to us through our software vendor. So you'll see that's another part of that increase. Again, you're looking at about $12,000
It was
there.
passed on to you by legislature,
Yeah, exactly.
and they figured probably it was easier to budget wise for you than it would be for me.
Moving on to Education Mills Hotel, that's remains the same. We have people continuing to do continuing education and things like that. Aerial photography is the same. GIS maintenance, just a small change there. Insurance bonds premiums, that's going to go up. And the reason for the increase there is if you'll look around, we just had a major remodel into this building. The cost replacement of what, if we had to replace what we have now as opposed to what we had even a year ago or 2 years ago, the increase. So we're going to increase the windstorm coverage. We're going to increase the overall coverage. We've had some, Josie and I have had some conversations, and these are the best estimates that we can come up with at the time.
Okay, pause just for a second. Why do you include bond premiums within that?
It's just a line, it's mainly insurance, is that right?
Yes.
Josie? It's
Well, basically, it has to be based on, you've got a zero loan payment up here. You wouldn't have a bond premium if you had no debt.
That's correct.
So my suggestion is, until you do have debt, strike the bond
So the
premium.
bond premium, are they talking about, like me, I'm bonded, that's an insurance.
Yeah,
Right,
that
do
may
you, do
be,
you have to be bonded?
I believe so.
That's probably your.
Yeah,
premium
okay,
for your
thank you.
bond.
Thank you.
Okay, that's totally different
It is.
than the bond you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay,
Yeah, and you'll have to forgive me.
And they're usually every 4 years, I'm every 4 years, if there's, so, like, every 3 years.
So that one, no.
So
Okay,
we
that's
only-
okay.
yeah.
I've had to.
So it's like 3 years, we get a break with none, and then 1 year we get 50. So,
Again, yeah, that's a good explanation. Thank you for that. Legal services. This is the one that we've been battling for years. You finally said, what did we actually spend in 21? Let's go to that number in hopes that we can be properly budgeted for that. So this is the number 72,000. That was the closest $1,000 increment, I think, that what we spent in 21. Now, if you're asking me what's going to happen in the future, I don't know.
Crystal ball, by the way?
Yeah, it's a cloudy sometimes.
Well, it's getting clearer. I mean, it really is, because the question I think that I asked was when you know, it wasn't all around our changes made in some of the appraisal stuff, but there was a jump made when, you know, I forget whatever was done on the method of appraisals and things of that nature. And the question was, is it a one-time, we're gonna have an annual, you know, just spike, or are we gonna have an increase over time? Whether it's because of that or not, it looks like we have had a consistent increase in legal fees. And so it was trying to better guess as to where we needed to raise the bar. We have some funds that we have in the, what's it called, the,
It's the assigned fund, it's in the.
It's in the audit. We have some-
40,000.
basically emergency fund, I for legal in that we have a signed fund for, but those are for the, and that was the question was, is this a 1-year spike where you use your funds and you don't, you know what I mean? We didn't have to, because we were able to keep within the budget, I guess, but it was a one-time deal, or it's just something we need to adjust the budget going forward, and it looks like we were just under budgeted for legal, we needed to adjust. I don't think that was because we did come on budgeting, but environment's changed.
Yes.
So there you go. But a reminder, we still have funds in there, but the funds are not enough to cover a true need to increase the budget that much.
Sure.
Right, 30 grand, you know what I mean? It's not that touch.
Good question.
This.
It's good. Moving forward, building grounds maintenance, the same copier lease. We increased there, we have a different copier when we moved from the trailers over here. So we took that into account. Also miscellaneous.
Mobile office.
Okay. The
Trailer
mobile.
sales.
And we got the Pitney Bowes postage machine now that we have.
Right. That's the, is that in the copier lease maintenance?
Yes. Yeah, that's why you increased, because now we're paying.
Yeah, we've
A
got,
quarterly
we've
payment
got
on
thank you for that, Josie. We have a mail machine now. So this time of year especially, it's super helpful for my staff to remain here and not make mail runs, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day.
They do not have a mail machine report.
No.
I don't have one.
But it's pretty robust. Yeah,
I have to
we're,
go to the warehouse.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Used to be easy when it was across the
We have a
street.
mail machine, good for
I
you.
haven't made any issue with it.
Well, it'll be like in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
Across the street.
Go get-
So that it's John there.
The miscellaneous 2,000 remains the same. Postage and fees have gone down, based on what we spent last year. Education board fees went down a little bit based on, record copies, it's the same. Telephone has gone up. We've actually increased, I think in one line. We've also got the conference phone that's not here right now, but we've got a conference phone that kind of sits in the middle so that we can have hearings with, ARB during our ARB meeting.
Yes.
Valuation services is much the same. IT replacement is much the same. Personnel services, you'll see an increase there. And that increase, you can see the line item, if you follow that over to the right, that's the increase that I'm recommending, from 495 to 556. Printing and office supplies, I'm gonna go into personal services in just a minute, so hold your questions there. Printing office supplies, again, we increased that line item because we looked at what we spent in 2021. Utilities much the same, there's increased rates of utility companies everywhere right now. I did talk to Jack a little bit, if we can save some money, to get into a longer time period, we want to go ahead and explore those things, so maybe we'll be able to save some money on that regard. But we're using the numbers that we currently have there. And that takes us through our budget. I'm gonna go into personnel services right here. And that's the line item where it says personnel services 495 and 556. You can see that 556 is displayed on the total salary line. It's kind of between the two grades, kind of by itself. You can see that there's two things that are indicated here. We'll look at the bottom one first. You can see that there's a proposed COLA, cost of living increase, adjustment, and then there's the merit-based increases. There's years of longevity and the longevity proposed, and then there's a final 2023 proposed, far right-hand column. So COLA, what's COLA and why are we even considering using it? Basically, I want to stay competitive in the market that we are. Who's our competition for employees and keeping good employees? It's the county, it's the city. It's
Competition.
yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
You make way more than
Yeah, with
I'm an elected official.
yeah.
I'm very busy. Good job.
We-
Yeah, no, I
we
would
wanna-
say, guys probably are way better than even your return and everything.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know.
At the same time, I told Michael, I wouldn't do what he does. Not for this matter.
So the COLA is commensurate with the COLA that we looked at for the county. I think we have another document that's in here that the COLA for the county last year was 7.4.
This is the first time that elected officials got 1 year's or the regular, I think they only got like 2.5 once or twice. They hadn't gotten one in a while, so that's why they went with the 7%.
Right.
Well, given what inflation's doing right now all around, it's the right time to do it. You probably have, just saying,
Yeah,
not gonna go away anytime soon.
no.
Right. The 5% is more in line with the city. The city was harder to see. I had Josie look into it. There's not a line item like the county has. It's just inherent into their benefits in their salary package. Last year, the city was 5.4. I think the year before that, they were in the five range as well. The county was 5 2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, it's been 2 years, I think we did 5 and 1 year before that was 2 point something.
And then last year was
So they
7.
went, like I said, it was just no department heads or elected officials, it was just the employees,
Okay.
regular employees. Yeah,
So I have a line item that's there for COLA at 5%. If that's my ask to be, in line with the other, local entities. As far as my merit-based increases, those are just, what I feel that that each individual, and that's why there's different numbers there. Each individual, I've done my own assessment. I've talked this over with Jack, but I've done my own assessment of how I feel that, they've done, this past cycle. And if you're looking at those, it's just a dollar amount. I'm going to move past myself and move to, the office manager, which is her percent, or her increase is commensurate with her level of work. Valerie is, and I don't know what depth I should go into this. What do you think, Jack?
Well, first off, you're in an open environment, everybody can hear everything. I think unless there is,
This is public. I mean, this can be asked, somebody can ask this off the street and I'd have to give it to them.
yes, that's fine.
Okay.
It's a number, it's like
The
superintendent.
number's the
said.
number, how you got there, is not
I don't-
necessarily,
okay,
public, and so I think unless we have, problems with what you've done or critiques, that
Correct.
we probably, in my opinion, should have asked you on our own time before, since this was provided a week in
Yeah.
advance.
What you're saying is fine, but what you're saying about them is between you two. That
Okay.
is different. That's how I can go up to 2 steps a year, and I have to put that in my budget. That is all it is I tell them I want these 2 steps. It's a dollar amount. My evaluation is between me and that employee.
Okay. And that's why I asked, that's why I stopped.
Yes.
No.
That is totally HR in between you
Yeah.
two only.
Also, I think here's an important matter. I'll explain this exactly. This board only has one employee. Right, what he chooses to do with his employees and staff, as long as it fits within the budget that we live with, is his responsibility.
Yeah.
That also adds to your.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Very
then,
glad you said that. I think that's important to state and remind all that are interested that that is our one employee.
Otherwise, we've talked about the fact that Karen talks to.
right.
Yeah.
So the salaries are demonstrated right here. They are commensurate. I'll just say this as a generality. I gave each employee consideration. I've evaluated each employee, meaning that I've ascertained their place, their position, and the level of acumen that they're able to contribute to the district. And that's reflected in my merit-based increases.
Okay, I have one question for you, which I've already asked you. But for the group benefit. Do you do a formal written review?
I do a formal written review.
That's important, that we know that.
On every employee,
On every employee. Yeah.
annually.
Yep. I do it annually,
You're in,
typically year end, not always year end. Sometimes I get busy with valuations and such, but yeah, typically year end. You do your year end?
No, mine are annually by their hire date.
Ah, interesting.
Yes.
well, that's.
You
That's the way it should be, yes, well, because your first anniversary, I do an evaluation. And possible.
Yeah, I'll let you know that I'm behind, but I have,
They're not, it's hard to stay. I had, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them do all at once because they're all around the same date.
If you don't have an HR manager reminding you.
They don't remind us of that,
Yeah, I know.
and so it's
You guys
just,
have HR manager at all.
yeah. Well,
the HR manager. And, so I'm behind on my
I don't get reminded of it.
written reviews, but I have.
It's hard to stay up with it. But.
Yep.
I figure it's easier to do it yearly to their anniversary, if their anniversaries are all spread out. Instead of trying to do it all at once, do that for employees all at once, and I would tear my hair out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concludes my presentation for the budget. Any questions?
No,
No question, you don't want to be entertained.
no.
I want to be entertained. What kind of entertainment we talking?
Little jig.
Come on, Mike.
We
you're
need a
here.
motion.
Yes,
Fair
yes.
I'll make the motion for the budget.
For a second, All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think, homework that you put into it is demonstrated.
Yes,
It's justified based upon what everybody else is doing, so.
Good. All right.
We're up to, I'm spreading this all over. the thing.
I know. Going back.
Audit. Item number 5, audit.
So you'll notice that this is the audit. You'll remember that the last time that we met, we had a presentation. There was a few things that had questions that needed revision. This is the revised copy. All we're looking for is just a, yes, you like it. You can.
Page 32 was the one that was revised. Page
That's what I was
32.
gonna ask. Okay.
Yeah, this is the revised one when you pointed out.
Is that right? Because I brought this from home, I don't know if I.
No, the last one was a draft, if I understand it right. I don't
Okay.
think it was a
Gotcha.
final, isn't that right? I don't take my word for it, but I think it was, I remember it was, I thought it was a draft on it.
The draft was in PDF form. He actually brought
Yeah, you
things.
brought the.
He actually brought some, but right before the meeting, I actually had Josie, because we sent this to you in digital form a week ago, or maybe Monday. It was last week. So we sent this to you in digital form last week.
Changed.
And what you have in your hand and the
I can bring the old one. It's basically
I
what
can't remember. We
changed
mentioned
was,
something.
the travel
Yep.
was 0.
Okay.
Naturally, it's taken there, and they changed a little bit on the supplies and the professional services.
Okay.
They had that we had to spend more on supplies, but actually it's more out of the services.
That were the only changes. Okay.
Let's, plan on doing something a little different next year. And that is, let's, highlight in some fashion one copy that you say. If we have questions, we can go back and read this, and just open it up, you can say, it is fixed. Whatever question.
I can do that.
Well, next year.
Okay, sounds good.
This entity is far ahead of most entities. That was the first government entity which we put out our report based on.
Can you repeat that? There was one copy, what is it that you just wrote recommended?
Take one copy when we're going through the draft process, highlight any recommended answers, changes, whatever verbiage you want to put in there. And then when we get the final version, just to check, that Michael says, okay, it's fixed. If we want to see it, then we can see it.
Okay, absolutely. Good.
That work? Okay.
So it's an action item.
Right.
So I'll make a motion to accept.
Second. You know, I don't think I can motion and second the anybody else does, so just. I don't have to make it just you two that way. Okay, all in favor of approving the audit?
Aye.
You say aye. Regarding budget and transfer unassigned funds, this one's gonna be fun and quick.
Okay, so this one right here should be in front of you, Jack, right there.
Yeah, no, I've got a big mess to sort out when we get ready to go.
Okay. The budget resolution, let's see if I can find my written copy.
All right, let me, because you have a tendency to want to read all of the letters and words, and I'll just sum it up quickly.
Okay.
We have a budget resolution to move 66,383 in unassigned funds to the work that's already moved.
No. Those are proposed future.
Okay, I said it wrong. It's money that's there, we're just moving it from unassigned to do those 3 items.
Yes, you are tagging this money to say, we want to do these future projects.
And we already have it from the insurance person.
You have it from this right here on this budget.
I mean, it came from the sale of property and interest proceeds.
I don't think so.
I think it came from a whole plethora of things.
Okay.
And it is unassigned funds on page.
I only say that because I think we've already spent, we spent the insurance funds, correct? The
Right.
insurance funds along with the sale of the property, you had a budget, you were kind of running on. That was the flood and the trailer, I think sorry, not trailer, mobile office suite.
The mansions from the backyard.
There you go.
They're fine.
I'm trying to find where my, the fund balance is. This is taking,
Page 11.
thank you very much.
You got 135,350 in unassigned funds, and we're leaving 60.
No, that's not right. It's 25 days. So you thought you were gonna be able to do a quick check. Okay, page 3 of your audit report. Financial highlights, second bullet says the fund balances of the district that closed in 2021 fiscal year is 762,251. Of this amount, 95,849 unassigned may be used to meet the district's ongoing obligations to property owners and creditors. Okay? So basically, there's 95,000 that's out there that this board can basically tag for whatever it wants to. And this kind of, where did the number of the $66,000 come from? It comes from future projects. In answer to your question, Travis, what has been done and paid for has already been accounted for in another venue, meaning like we have other funds for that. You have future funds of 95,000 for which you're saying, okay, what is it going to cost for this project, the damming up, the back storage area, and those 3 projects are in, and I sent this to everybody, are in the future projects. And there's 3 different projects. There's the making that front entry all hurricane proof window. That's one project. The other is the damming up and the painting with the marine grade up to 2 feet. That's the second project. The third project is making that storage. So you add those 3 projects together, and that's where you get the 66,000, from which you have 95 over here of unassigned funds. You're just tagging 66 of them for these projects.
I'm not mistaken with it's 95.
Yeah.
So they're making a moat around there, we're gonna have a bridge.
That's
come
right,
in.
that's right.
I just picture it'd be cool,
Yeah, the dam,
so it fills up instead of.
Well, the dam's just the front door, right?
the dam is the front and the back door.
Yeah.
We're sealing up all the weep holes. We're putting marine grade paint for the first 2 feet. We're painting the whole building. And then that's one project. The glass, making it hurricane proof so that we don't have to board up, that is another project. And then the back office, making it climatized so that we can have files, that we can move our files back from Victoria.
Are you gonna have any kind of hurricane something for the front door, so you can just drop it and go?
Yes,
Okay.
that's one of
That's
the,
part of
that's the dam is what they call it. Yeah.
For the water.
And that's what makes the moat window.
That's
There you
right.
go.
So,
No, and I think it's important. I mean, a lot of this was recommended and discussed at the time of planning for this building. It just was something we knew we couldn't do at the first round, and we'd have to see if we had enough unassigned funds to do or how we would do it, but
right,
they weren't ramped up yesterday.
right. And that's a picture of, that's a picture of the dam.
And the only hesitancy I had last meeting was I wanted the specific proposals with cost of the contractors in that.
That's exactly right.
And we now have that, which is instead of just a blank check to go do it, we now have a dollar amount. proposed.
And one of the things that you.
And the storage, which I think is important, is not just to create storage out of a building just for fun, but we actually are paying for storage in a different town.
In Victoria.
And we get to move our stuff home. And I mean, there's benefits, and where it's kind of a cost trade, but also to have access to your stuff versus before.
Yeah. You'll remember that at the hurricane, we had our back storage area. That's where we kept all our old records, old appraisal rolls and such. We had to move those. We moved them to Victoria. That was one of the closest places that had space at the time. I know that's weird, but
Did you do it after the storm or before?
no, we did it after the storm.
So I have a question going there, you know, you've got all those records that, I mean, I looked at that's a pretty storage building. I doubt it's gonna sustain much storm. What would you do in the case of a storm? Because now they're in Victoria, which is safer.
Yeah,
Not convenient, but
I want to move it here for climatization to have access to the record, but also the shelving doesn't start for 2 feet. So the bottom 1.5 or 2 feet are up, it's just clear. So we're gonna have shelving in there, we're gonna put the stuff up. Obviously, if we have another storm that blows that down, I don't have an answer for you. I mean.
do we have backups? I mean, is it?
Yeah, we, at some point in the past, we had all our stuff digitized, but I don't know the complexity of it. I don't remember the complexity of it.
Required to keep it, I mean.
Yeah, there's a records retention plan that
Should we-
I'm required.
Unless the storm takes it away.
And I really, I guess that's my question, I mean, I mean, to what degree, I mean,
I have that whole, if you ever come to my office,
Tom?
I'll show you. We have one whole side that goes back to 1920s.
Right.
And the historical, we can't just get rid of them.
The same way, like in that front room, the map.
I'm trying to get it.
It
researched where I
destroyed the
can
maps,
donate
but it didn't destroy
historically
the
to get
appraisal
out of
record, so we have to keep. it.
because-
The requirement to keep records is not acts of God. I mean, obviously, that's my real question, is by putting them back here, it can't be focused on the store that you have, I mean, not what supposed to be doing beyond that, I mean, they need to be reading access, so I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I don't have to do anything for you, other than, we can go through another digitizing process, make sure that these are all digitized and kept on hard drives and whatnot.
No,
I would look into what it requirement of, how much we need on a functionality basis.
You just need to
So,
get rid of
then I think it's a good move, or just me.
For future, yeah.
It's always easy to say we're gonna move them in case of a storm, but then you get like a Harvey where you don't get the warning, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, that's all.
Okay.
But you don't even.
Oh, all the time. It's all the time. Times are changing, you got lines all the time. It's kind of scary.
Well, your historical records are just that, you couldn't possibly fit any normal written intentions. There is no forever
Yeah,
in record. retention.
Jerry's was always afraid to touch them because of possible issues we could have if we got rid of them, that we just don't want to deal with. So it's just something I'm in the process of trying to figure out what we can and cannot. Yes.
Yeah, okay, well,
I want to move to that same way. I want to
Yeah.
digitize them.
That was something we looked into. It's just so ridiculous.
It is, and you have to get people that go, they take box by box, they scan them, and, you know.
Would be nice.
so we have one-time expense, we have a smaller maintenance on the home.
I can bring that to the board's attention with an estimate. Another part of this estimate that, as far as this budget resolution that we did not consider is and the question that was asked by Travis is, where's the generated backup? Well, that was gonna run over $100,000 and there's just no way.
Do we have, yeah, that's a big generator. Do we have a hookup? The third party, if we hire somebody to bring this generator, is there a quick switch? Do we at least have something we can easily plug a generator into this building or to take?
You gotta have a backup switch.
Do we have that is what I'm asking.
I
Do
don't
we have a,
No, I think
because in the interim, yeah, in the interim, I mean, if we don't own the generator, that's fine, but if we had a third party service bringing us a big generator for only the sake of storm, did it that way.
but we did talk about putting in the availability for a future one, so maybe the answer is, the technical answer is, I don't know, I mean, but I can find out.
It would be good, that's something that would be a lower expense and makes, I mean, that's a big deal, if you can just put one on there and have that switch, then you don't have to worry about yanking that thing off when the power comes back on.
It limits it to diesel because a good portion of this expense that we're not gonna be able to do right now is for gas line. And they were talking about a natural gas, which is terrific. It's generally more reliable after hurricane than some things like getting enough diesel fuel. But the thing you have to have is the limitation of you power this building, but you don't power down the block.
That's exactly right. Yes. So that in
You
the
gotta
switch
have
is
the
a lot,
switch.
Yes, and the switch a lot less than the generator.
We put that in, that's my memory.
I
is that
thought-
we put
I
it in
thought
the
we did,
original.
that's That's all I want to
I'm
do.
gonna, I'll check with the electrician to see what, to ask your question, basically. I'll get an answer to you for next,
It's the least expensive component of making it ready.
That's what they did with our building, if you remember, being right by the public safety building. They attached our building on with the public safety building's big one that they got brought in.
Mhm.
So and that's the one thing that actually saved our records in our office from being destroyed from the humidity, and that was, they got us hooked up.
That's
Within
it,
a couple
and I
days.
want to make a big deal, like, we're in storm season and we have all this nice stuff we just paid for, and, granted, you have insurance, I get it, but you don't want to use insurance because you have it, you want to save it, not have to use it, protect it, not have to replace it. It's a big pain to have to do exactly what we did again. If a generator stopping the humidity and, stopping the damage, that's what you do first. So my fear is if we don't have the switch, it's just easier to bring one in and quickly hook it up and
Right,
get operating.
and those are all good points. You'll remember where we were this time last year is we had some funds to be able to do this renovation here, but we didn't have enough that plus this until we saw the unassigned funds in the budget, in the audit. And so now you have unassigned funds that you can contribute towards the 22 budget amendment. And then we can get started on these projects.
Well, but I'm like, Jack, I want to find out if this, I thought the switch was already maybe included. We need to figure out if we have that already.
Now,
But
do
you
have
can,
one?
this budget amendment is for the dam, for the painting, and for that storage out there. If you want to, that doesn't do anything, the difference between the 95 and the 66, what is that, so that's roughly, 29,000. Did I do that right? Yeah. Yeah, 29,000, roughly 29,000. You don't have to do anything with that right
And
now.
that's fine. Did you not, the generator bid's not included in this, right?
That is correct.
Just information.
Now, do you have like, this is just off the wall question, because I'm considering trying to figure out something, a hurricane evacuation protocol, like,
This is gonna sound funny and ironic, but it's not funny, or it is ironic, but it literally blew away with the last hurricane. We had a plan that was sitting on, I think in that front map room or something like that, and there was a lot of moving parts, but yeah, we need to revisit the digitized evacuation plan.
But there it is.
Okay, so we have a.
So in this estimate, they have electrical installations and transfer switch of $22,500.
So we should have got it.
No, that's in the bid that he got for informational purposes. Quickly, when I asked about was generator included in this, because we talked about when we did the walk around, and everything we talked about, the other stuff, generator was included in the conversation with the things. So the floodgates and the dam were included in the original conversation of the building. The storage building was something that came up, but we talked about generators when we talked about that. And so if we can't get a generator at minimum, we need to be able to hook one up and quickly.
So the transfer switch in that bid was about 22.
It's included with electrical, whatever, electrical installations and
If
transfer
you did it
switches.
again, it'd be a lot cheaper than going back.
Yeah, and the point is today, the only resolution that we have is for the 3 projects.
I understand.
And you'll have about 29 left, and you
I
can,
was just pointing out that's 22. So
that's good to know.
if we don't have it already included in the original building, which we
It
have to figure out,
shouldn't be that expensive.
that's. I don't disagree. That's why I want to.
We did it at the bank. I agree. But that was,
I think we can explore getting, I think you can explore getting proposals for, I would like to talk this out loud.
Yeah, the 66,000 is based on 3 proposals for 3 different projects.
I've seen,
And everybody's seen them. It's to account for so that we can get started on the process
I
right now.
understand what we're talking about today. That always puts on the different. Okay. So you need a motion for these.
think that it can be combined into a single motion. Did you phrase it that way on
Oh, it's consideration possible action, yeah, regarding budget amendment to transfer unassigned funds to building
Okay.
repair.
And I will move approval of that budget.
Well, only, I'm sorry, when we move, this is not amending a budget, correct?
It is a bit amending the budget.
This is amending a budget.
You're taking unassigned funds and you're saying that the 22 budget has already been, it was done last June.
We're amending the current budget.
You're amending the current.
It's just something that you have to give notice to the entities before we do, or do we do it?
You do the resolution, you give a copy to the resolution to the entities, and that's it.
Okay. This is one of the things we give advance notice. They have so many days to tell us no, and then it's not done to do.
That is just a little while ago, we did the proposed budget for the 23 cycle. We give it to them,
Yes.
they marinate on it all
Right.
summer. They tell us, if they don't say anything, then this
Right.
board acts on it in August.
On the budget though, that happens on a resolution that doesn't.
No, not.
All right. Okay, I just wanted to know the process. So this is appropriate in the way we're handling. All right, then,
Okay. What item are we up to now?
The chief appraiser report, very first thing is the thing that you always look at that you say that you can't do anything about, which is the supplemental detail presentation. You can look at it. It's right here. I've got a big one right here, paper copy, but you can look at it on your detail. It's called supplemental detail group 389 through 414 on your tablet. And what it has is a big list of several pages worth of supplemental detail. Again, it is here, there's 80 pages of supplemental detail report. Much of these, like we talked about, are either 2525 Bravo, which is, I'll explain it for purposes of why we do this is you having certified totals each and every year. And if you make changes to the roll, we have to inform you as the board. We also have to inform the ARB of such changes. Many of these changes are exemptions that are being applied, corrections to the roll, joint motions to correct between citizens in the district. They're here for your purview. I'll answer any questions if you have.
all right, I'm looking at the right thing. It's summary of certified roll change, right? Is that what I'm looking at?
You're looking at supplemental details. You can look at the summary.
Summary is the summary, like what you're talking about, correct?
Exactly.
All right. Isn't, I know we can't take action. We can ask questions, all right?
Yeah, of course.
51 million de-annexation. What in the world is that?
City of Aransas passed in error.
Is that deal?
People.
All right, very good. I don't need any more. A lot of money.
Yeah, the, supplement 406 and 407 ended up being $111,000 and $30.
Yeah, that was fun.
So that's 51 million of property values, correct?
Yeah, probably. That
Negative means that,
times the tax rate is the actual levy that the city of Aransas had to dole out.
We did, that was not for Aransas, our entities here in our county. Because we were not on, it was for Aransas Pass ISD and City of Aransas Pass.
That is correct.
Got hit for refunds. We did, so that wasn't really a value change for our school district, our city, or our county, or just our county.
That's correct.
So
wow, I think that's big for us. So far, since I looked at these. Maybe not. All right,
you can see some of these are just legal appeals. Sometimes it's just better to. Let me start here. We don't initiate the suit. The citizen says, hey, I think that value's wrong. At some point, your legal fees become so much and you're about to enter into the courtroom phase. And you see the mitigation of losses as far as like what that looks like.
where are you?
That was in group 407. I mean, that's a pretty 1.4 million.
Yeah, that was, Walgreens and Rockford property, right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, I'm settling these things if I can, if I think it's close. I have to make a judgment call on how much I'm spending as opposed to what I feel like, it doesn't say anything about what I feel about the value of the property, because I still disagree with the settlement, if that makes sense, but I'm trying to mitigate real costs for the district and the citizens. I mean, whoever's contributing to my budget, that's what I'm trying to mitigate loss. Anyways, here's your summary of certified oil changes. If you have any questions.
No, we don't take any action you to do.
No,
No, we're moving on.
They're already done.
I'm learning, I'm as worried as I can be for one meeting.
I don't have any financials for you right now because we spent a lot of time with the audit, the budget. We had the CDR presentation. I just don't have anything for you. We're in the middle of the year. Our next board meeting, then I'll present a financial where we are. I usually give you a percentage of the year and what we're looking like. I don't have anything to present for you today. Building renovation update, you can see that we have our doors yet to do. The doors are actually being delivered today. And we hope to have all of that done by next Wednesday, which should be the end of it.
Awesome.
So we've enjoyed our building. We're in fact, that's one of the guys right there. He's going to be delivering doors and installing them today. We had our mobile units. What did we say? Office unit? Mobile offices.
Mobile office suite.
They were just recently removed this week. We have a cleaning crew that's going to clean up our back area that they left debris and stuff. But that's.
Did you charge them rent?
They didn't charge us rent for this last. Oh, did we charge them? No.
They were
Because
technically.
they didn't pick them up.
Yeah.
that's
I'm like,
right. But that would essentially complete the project. I'm satisfied with the general contractor. They've done a really good job, with the exception of the doors, which is what wasn't the general fault, it was the sub's fault. Otherwise, we've been able to come in and use the space immediately. We're generally pleased with the space, and so that's where we're at. Future building projects, that was talked about in the resolution. That comprises the $66,000 in change. Within 3 different projects. I would like to start that immediately. What does that mean? Well, it's over 50,000, so all of this has to go out for bid. It's probably not a bad thing anyway. We can get that whole thing started. We can start to bid.
Oh. It's over 50.
The combined.
You would have done them as individual projects, would you have had to go out for bid?
No,
Why are we doing combined?
because you can't do what's called rolling.
So you had to do it the way you did it. That's all you have to say. Very good. I don't need the explanation. This is safer to go out anyway.
I have,
All right,
yeah.
very good.
Yes, I would have liked to.
That's fine. I don't, got it.
Okay, so those are the future building projects. The TCDR presentation we already did, and that completes my chief appraiser.
Hey, what, so,
Oh, we had a visitor,
yes,
and I decided that we needed a procedure.
no, that's why I want to make sure we talked about it. We do.
Yes. I borrowed one from the school district and edited it initially for our use, and I think we did some additional. And it's just so that we have somebody that wants to sit in on a meeting and talk. Well, they have a period that they can, but they can't deviate from that except as there is an agenda item that they want to. We also need a procedure, I don't think a policy, to say you only have one bite at the apple with respect to agenda items. Pick what you want to do. So you have a citizen to be heard against anything and everything, and an agenda item. I don't see it as getting out of hand, but someday it could.
in time.
Well, yes, we had 3 minutes or 5 minutes. I think the school district is 5.
I think.
5 minutes, you have 5 at the beginning.
I think it's only 5 minutes too.
It is.
I believe so. They're pulling
Well,
City's 3.
we only have 5 and 3. Sign up below, oh, no, it is 3. It is 3. This is a sign up. The
Okay.
sign up at 15 minutes, closes at 5. And you have a speaker will be given up to 3 minutes to address the board. If, however, the total number of speakers exceeds 5, that limit may be reduced. No event will be given less than 1 minute.
And it probably needs to be adopted. We'll do that next meeting or whatever. we can put it on the agenda
So
today.
this is an FYI for today. This is
Yeah,
okay. And then the agenda item issue, is that need to be incorporated into this?
yes,
So that will be
It's
done.
not.
We'll do that before the next meeting.
yes, I'll
Okay.
take it with that. I'll take this copy and edit it up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That needs to have some limitation around it as well.
I want to give people an opportunity to speak and be heard.
I've
I've been to a city council meeting where one person stands up and talks about every agenda item.
Okay.
And it's just bizarre.
Which,
You
yeah,
don't have to let them talk at all. You don't have to have a citizens to be heard section.
really.
It's correct. You can adopt it. We're not going to do that. Texas Attorney General said you don't have to, but if you have to, you gotta have rules. Or if you're going to, you gotta have rules.
What about agenda items?
They can address an agenda item.
They can, right?
They can.
And you have to allow.
You have to allow that because it is an agenda item.
They have to stay on it
But we-
Yes.
that time.
But you can have, and you can put guidelines around that. You can
Yes.
put guidelines around that.
Well, for example, I think the school district does something that is smart because we've had this happen a couple of times. You get 5 or 6 people that all want their opinion to be heard about an item, whether it's not an agenda item or it's just in the citizens to be heard. Once you get to 5 on the same, because these are picked up beforehand, then Kathy Henderson goes to the group of 5 and says, pick one speaker. That's just to keep it from dragging on. I'll let one representative do so. So if you get the subject matter on 5 different times, somebody takes a speaker.
You can.
I can get that in.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, that's all I got.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm out of here and I will not make a motion.
You don't have to.
I'm not going to.
Don't do it.
Don't find out.
So we are adjourned. And you need to sign those, Jack.
Yes. Did I sign the minutes one yet? Okay.
You did. I handed them to your own.
Okay, Anna.